Hello and welcome to Hekima Counsel's Makala Podcast channel. Makala, meaning branches, Kasisuthu. My name is Noni Masombuka and I'm your host. We hope this podcast finds a way to impact, educate, and inspire your next. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Buzzsprout. Basically everywhere where you find your podcast fix. Every first and last Friday of every month. Hello and welcome to the Hekima Counsel podcast channel, Makala. I'm your host, Noni Masombuka. I don't have to remind you, I'm sure. Please like and subscribe our channel. We want to grow this thing into a movement. My guest today is Noni Masombuka. She is the head chef. She was very specific. Head chef and founder of Black Olive House. Welcome, Noni.
Thank you for having me.
I am thoroughly excited to have this conversation. I don't want to not like bore everybody with our history. It's been years. We're catching up
from Fantuka af.
We have a lot of long history, but you'll hear some of it. First things first. Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Noni Masombuka. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in a town called Siyabusa KwaNdebele in Mpumalanga. And that's where I grew up. I only moved out of town in 2004, I think, to go to high school in Groblersdal, which was also in Mpumalanga. Then from there, I moved to Pretoria.
Okay.
So my entire childhood is based in KwaNdebele.
And then when did you transition into Johannesburg?
Work transitioned me into Johannesburg. I actually moved to Cape Town before I actually came to Joburg. So I was in Pretoria, and from Pretoria I went into aviation, and then from aviation took me to Cape Town, and then when I was in Cape Town, I saw an opportunity in Joburg, and then I moved back to Pretoria actually, and I was working from Pretoria to Joburg.
Traveling. Bless you. Bless you. Do you remember a specific moment or incident in your history that you can say that the entrepreneurial bug bit you at that point?
Funny enough, no. It took a very long time for me to identify as an entrepreneur. For a long time, I identified as a chef. But when you hear because childhood, I don't remember much of it. But when you hear people talking about it, specifically my sister will tell you, I remember bits of it. Like I used to sell muffins. I used to make muffins like red, green, blue back at home. And home, like KwaNdebele, is a very rural area. And back when I was growing up, it was like the rural muffins. And I used to make like eggs with like cinnamon, and I used to do all sorts of weird things and sell ice as well. So I used to sell that to my neighbors. Funny enough, like 2 streets from my house.
Sure.
Those are my customers. Those are my only customers. So I'd sell them ice, muffins, all these things that I would make. So I think that's where it bit me. But my dad is the entrepreneur in my life that I have found a lot of inspiration from, because he's been an entrepreneur all his life. And so transitioning into a space where you're working for yourself and you're actually creating a future and life for yourself was easy for me, because I saw how he did it. So it wasn't a conversation of where can I see representation. He was the living. So when it was time for me to do my own thing, I was like, oh yeah, of course, this is what I have to do now.
Yeah. What do you think you weren't able to identify as an entrepreneur for the longest time? What was holding you back?
I don't think I was held back as an entrepreneur because I wasn't looking to be an entrepreneur. So I think when I grew up, times are different now, where entrepreneurship is something you want to become. But growing up, I didn't actually, even when I started, I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I just knew I had a vision, and I had something that I wanted to do with this vision, and I wanted to own my time. And so then that transitioned into me being labeled as an entrepreneur. So when I came into the space of entrepreneurship, I realized, which is also another reason why I couldn't identify with the brand entrepreneur. I realized that it's a very disconnected conversation. Entrepreneurship is one thing, but the reality is something completely different. And so I felt like a lot of transparency was lacking in terms of what it actually means to be an entrepreneur in South Africa in 2000 and 17 when I was starting out. I had no idea what was happening, and so the transparency wasn't there. There was one thing that I was supposed to be doing, and then there was the reality of what was happening and how I was doing it, and it was very disconnected.
Sure.
So I wished for a lot more transparency in terms of what it actually means. Now there's a lot more transparency, which I appreciate, about what it actually means to be an entrepreneur, what it means to manage people, because that's a whole chapter I could write a book about.
We will get to it.
So all of those things that you don't get to see a lot of when someone is speaking on a broader scale, I wish that had been there when I started.
Yeah. Okay. Black Olive House.
Yeah.
Talk us through that service offering. What exactly do you provide for your customers?
So Black Olive House is private and corporate catering. So we do curated menus as well, and we also offer private chef services. So it's different kinds of ways that we provide these services, but these are umbrella terms that I'm giving you. So we would, for private catering, would come to your house, and then we would come with everything already prepared, come to your house, do a beautiful display, whether it's a finger food, it's a buffet, it's a plated menu. You don't have to worry about anything. So we do all the preparations. And with the corporate catering, it's a similar concept where we come in with our staff, and then we set up and we feed the people that you have. So essentially, we are about feeding people. Yeah.
Sounds like a Makoti's dream.
Yeah.
Giving.
When I first started, people were like, can you teach me? And when we used to do Christmas deliveries, and when we did Christmas deliveries, we'd have to deliver early in the mornings for new Makotis, so that they would take the stuff, put it in your own dish, and we just keep quiet.
Lovely. When I think back when we first met, Black Olive House was a number of things, right? You had the meal preps.
Yeah.
You had the organization part of the business, home organization.
Oh my goodness.
There was also like fine dining there. There was teaching classes of some kind.
Cooking classes.
Tell me through that season and then the transition.
That season is exactly what I'm talking about when I say transparency around entrepreneurship. So when you're coming into a space and you're selling a product, you feel like you can touch the sky, and you feel like you can do everything and anything at the same time. I actually forgot about the organization part.
I was like, what am I working?
Yeah, we were busy at first on paper. We were busy. But so that was a fresh Noni that had just realized that she has something special and something special to offer, and I wanted to offer a lot of these things to everybody, but also I was just trying to find my feet and trying to establish my identity and who I was. And with that came a lot of learning and unlearning of certain things and growing as a person. And with the growth came an understanding that I wanted to focus on one particular niche instead of spreading myself thin and actually not mastering any of the things that I'm doing. So I wanted to focus on one thing that I felt a strong pull towards, which was the cooking. I wanted to focus on that and do that well. And then everything else that I will create will grow from that. So that was the transitional period, because I was spread so thin that everything was just falling apart and nothing was, working out how I envisioned it to work. And then I had to take a moment and be like, you have to take away everything else and just stay with the thing that you are passionate about and the thing that you feel closest to. And that was when I dropped everything else and I focused on the catering and the cooking.
So is the return baba, is it coming back?
The meal preps, I don't think so. Yeah, those things are a lot of work. The meal preps are so time consuming, and it's crazy because a lot of my clients want meal preps. They're like, I have a friend who is a single dad. Is there something you can do? And I want to. I really do. But I'm the admin of meal preps. You focus. We used to do meal preps for a very prominent soccer player, and we just book off Sundays just to do his meal preps. This is one guy.
One person.
And pricing for meal preps is not the same as if I'm catering for 10 people. Pricing for meal preps, you're like selling a meal prep for 70 Rand. And that time, the labor it takes to make that 70 Rand meal doesn't match.
Oh, yeah.
And so meal preps work when it's mass. when you have a huge market, like the other brands that are doing it where they deliver, you know, it works when you have a huge market. But for me, because also I enjoy Black Olive House as an intimate brand as opposed to a mass brand, it was difficult for me to sort of create just a self-oiled machine for the meal preps, because hiring people, having to do quality control and checks and all of that, it was too much, too time consuming for me.
So your product offering. I remember a time where you used to make mhlonyana cake.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm still there. I'm still there.
Are you still within? Are we still?
No, I'm still within. I'm deeper. I'm going deeper.
So talk us through your style. So you bring a lot of creativity into how you make food.
Yeah.
Right. Talk us through that journey and why it was so important for you to tap into some of the things that other chefs might frown upon.
Yeah. So, you know, the more you do something, the more you learn about it and the more you grow in it. So when I started, it was just like, I want to cook, I'm passionate about cooking, and as time, you know, went by, I realized that indigenous products were not represented in the culinary space. I didn't see any. I was approached by there's a company that approached me and they asked me to curate a menu, a Southern African indigenous menu. And I went online, and my sister and I, we were like, there's nothing. There is absolutely nothing. And so when we were online, we also tried to discover what is Southern African product. What do we produce? What does our land produce? And that was an even darker hole that we went into, because there was nothing anywhere online. If you found something, it's a book someone has somewhere, and a lot of the books, you know, were written a long time ago. Some of them are not accessible if you don't know the names of the books. And also when you find the books, you have the ingredients and they tell you this is edible, this is medicinal, this is this, but you don't actually have recipes that we're using
to get that thing out, to make it out of life.
Exactly. You take Impepo, for instance, there was nothing on Impepo, and the crazy thing is that when we started using it, and that for me was the first time I understood representation, and the first time we started using Impepo as an ingredient in our food, everybody started using it and started having stories that my grandmother used to make this recipe, my grandmother used to smoke with it, but those conversations were never really available for an ordinary average chef. So my sister and I took it upon ourselves. We started a garden because, again, access to these things, you know, half of the ingredients that we planted in our garden, you couldn't just walk into a shop and buy them. And so we started a garden in 2018, and we planted all the ingredients that we saw online, that we researched, went to nurseries to try and planted them, and then we started using them, incorporating them in the food. So that is still a big passion of mine, of discovering more Southern African ingredients, because I feel like we don't have much of a footprint on global scale in terms of who is Southern Africa on the table, outside of the struggle foods that we have. And this, you know, we might have two sections of a debate here where we call them struggle food, but essentially, you know, very saturated fats. It's not food that is indigenous, that grows on the land. And that's the food that I'm passionate about, food that grows freely everywhere for everyone, food that you can forage, food that's not necessarily linked to a particular recipe that was brought in by the settlers and you know, our friends on the other side.
Our friends on the other side. We shall remain nameless.
Yes. Okay. So with that, I had to sell the idea also of indigenous food being normalized in a household. Hence, umhlonyane iced tea, umhlonyane chicken, all of it. So to make it normalized as opposed to imbiza, or making it like, oh, to have this, you know, because there's a stigma around indigenous products as well. 100%. So I wanted to create a space in which these products can be looked at in a different light, and they can be understood from a different light.
Yeah. Sure. I'm so glad. That part of it must not change.
Me too. Me too.
Okay, let's talk about vulnerability, right? In entrepreneurship. Whether it's on matters that either helped you grow or stuff that you wish was available, right? I mean, on your journey, stuff that you wish that you were able to find in your journey of entrepreneurship. We don't talk about that enough. I don't feel like entrepreneurs are able to express themselves in that way, because you can't really talk about it because you're still in the entrepreneurship, still running your own business.
Yeah.
But what would you say are some of the things that you wish existed when you were starting out? Some of the things that you struggled with, and you feel like you shouldn't have had to.
Yeah, I mean, a big one is employment. Employing people as an entrepreneur, as a small business, is a completely different conversation to employing people as a big organization, because the rules that apply to big organizations apply to small businesses. So already there's a disadvantage there, where you're an entrepreneur, you're starting a business, and you're like, I need to have 4 chefs, and you have this whole plan of how you're going to employ people, what you're going to pay them, and the funds and everything. And then comes the people, the actual living, breathing people that are coming into your business, and your business is not doing what it was supposed to be doing. It's not growing, it's not thriving. And it's not because your product is, you don't have a good product offering, but it's because the people that you've hired are not applying themselves as you would apply yourself. So even still till today, a lot of my entrepreneur friends struggle heavy with employment, especially in our industry, because the pay is very low. The pay is very low, and the staff that you get, you struggle to get them as passionate, you're struggling to get them to deliver the same quality of service that you have. So in my industry, I feel like entrepreneurship, the vulnerability of the struggle of employing people to come into a business, into a small business, for you to manage people as an entrepreneur, because you don't always have an HR manager to deal with it. Everything comes to you.
In fact,
everything
you hardly ever find an HR
and
manager.
so even when you're stressed, at the end of even when there's no money, I mean, I was actually having a conversation about this with my dad, where I was telling him that it's not as easy to manage people when you have a business that you're running, because first of all, you go to a client's house, someone breaks a glass, or someone, breaks a bottle of very expensive alcohol. The client is not looking at the person that broke it. The client is looking at Black Olive House broke a bottle at my house. So that presents challenges on its own, not just the bottle breaking and the financial ramifications of that, but also the brand suffering, because the people that you bring into my house are not capable. And then the word spreads to say that, she broke my 5,000 rand bottle, and so it's a very sensitive area that we are threading with, because we are trusting people with our brands, and when we go in there, anything can happen. And when that happens, there has to be something that you step in as an entrepreneur to do to ensure the client that you are very sorry, and at the end of the day, sometimes that ends up being discounts that you offer them in the service that you were offering. So they're not paying their full invoice and whatnot, because you're trying to keep the client. And come at end, that same staff member that broke the bottle still needs to get paid his full salary. So I think the conversations around that and small businesses, and how it needs to change from how big businesses run in terms of employing staff and their HR department, and how small businesses are run. The rules have to be completely different, because it's a different playing field. We're not playing at the same level.
And what do you think? So now you have the reasons why staff was not able to work, right, at an employer level. But what would have made things easier? What systems should you have put in place if you had known?
What I did eventually was to not hire anyone as an employee in my business. I work with freelancers now, and the headache has lessened. I have no headaches. I sleep very well at night. I work with freelancers because freelancers understand the value of ownership. Freelancers understand the value of working for their money. And freelancers understand that if I'm not working today, I'm not making money. And so I work very well with them, because if you're not available, I book another guy. If you're not available, I'm not trying to limit you to say, you only have to work for me, because that also presents its own stresses, where people are like, now you're not paying me enough, and I don't want to come into work. Someone would be like, you can book them on Monday and tell them to go pick up equipment from a client, and they'll tell you, I didn't go. When you ask them why, they don't give you a good reason, but at the end of the month, they still need to get paid. So with freelancers, it's a much better working relationship, because then it's more of a collaboration than it is, an employer-employee relationship. They tell you their challenges, you both find a way to overcome those challenges, because it's a conversation. When you're working with freelancers, like you're speaking to another entrepreneur, and their challenges, you have ways in which you can go around them. So I think I wish I had known about freelancers. It's the same as when I first started catering. I wish I had known that you could hire equipment. I just went in and bought stuff.
All the stuff.
With my first paycheck, and I was broke at the end of that event. But you know, it's things that you wish you knew, and it's things that you learn along the way to sort of find what flows for you. So for me, what I wish I had known was the value of freelancers, because the collaboration is intense, the innovation is also because whatever problem they face in the job, they find solutions for it. They don't wait for a meeting and they don't call you with problems. It's always, oh, this and this happened and this is what I did to fix it. So I appreciate that relationship much more.
Yeah, because they're also rendering a service.
Yes.
So are you, yeah. Sure. Very interesting. So I wanted to talk also about the state of the economy, right? It's tricky times. You are in the business of food.
Yeah.
And that in itself, it's a luxury.
It's a luxury.
It's a luxury.
It's something people are just like, do we need it?
100%.
Yeah.
And there's inflation, so food prices are skyrocketing.
Yeah.
There's also a twinkie bird flu.
Yeah.
It's affecting chickens, it's affecting eggs.
Yeah.
Foods that are actual staples
Yeah.
in many South African homes. How are you sort of navigating that space with all of those headwinds?
Everything that's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, safety, you have to take safety into account in terms of everything else that's happening in terms of affecting the food industry directly. So you have to prioritize safety. You have to make sure that everything that you are producing and everything that you're putting out is safe for someone else to consume. And then you have the economy where, you know, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But for me, personally, I have found that, which is something that I don't think is in in conversations around entrepreneurship and owning a business. But for me, my spirituality is what has helped me navigate the economy and navigate all these things that are changing, because I used to work hard. Like, I used to break my back. I would not see family. My friends list has dropped dramatically. It was intense because that's the culture of entrepreneurship. You work from Monday to Monday and you're basically dead by Sunday, and you have 5 hours to rest.
Yeah.
But what I found, the more I leaned into my spirituality, the more I leaned into understanding how abundance works, how attraction works, and how frequency works. The more I leaned into that, is the less I worked and the more money I made. So even now, in with the economy the way that it is, I don't wrap my head around that. I don't allow that to affect my frequency. I don't allow that to affect the way that I do business. So I sit back and I say, times are changing, things are changing, but I know for a fact that I will be taken care of. I know for a fact, and this is the beginning of how I started Black Olive House. I used to say, I know my clients will come to me. So even now, because now what's happening is that you have to change the price range. You have to change the, what do they call it, the entrepreneurs? You have to change the bracket in which you're operating in. So then I sit back and I say, my clientele will come to me. And they do. I still have clients that say, oh, that's fine. I send them an invoice with a higher price. They're like, okay, that's fine. And I have clients who are like, the economy, this and this and this and that. And I understand that those are clients I have to leave behind, because the economy is not going to get any better. It's actually going to get worse. Yeah. And so for me to get stuck there means that my entire business and everything I work for, because Black Olive House is me. It's my essence. It's everything that I am. If it's not healthy, I'm not healthy. And so if I get stuck in this ever-changing world and I don't find a way to because the mind is very powerful. If I don't find a way to go above that, I'm just going to get stuck here. My business is going to be stuck in the same place, and it's going to be suffering from the illnesses of everything that's happening. It's going to be susceptible to all these things that are happening right now. So that's how I've managed to maneuver around the economy and the changing times.
The understanding that you don't walk alone.
No, because some things you can't. I mean, what are you gonna do? We can sit and complain. Petrol's going up now, and food prices are not even going up, or they've skyrocketed. Food prices are insane. What you get at a store, and it doesn't matter which store you're in. It's insane. And so myself sitting around and complaining about that isn't going to solve anything. So I need to find a way for me to have a healthy mind around the changes that I'm experiencing and the changes the business is experiencing.
Sure. And now let's look into branding and marketing. You've had to maneuver your business. It's had to change and alter as the years went by. How would you describe your brand now, as you sit in? how long did it take you for you to formulate the brand that you felt comfortable with now, that represents who you are and what you wanted to embody in the industry?
Sure. We're turning 10 years next year.
Has it been 10 years already?
It's 10 years next year. Started in 2014.
Sure.
And I still feel like it's still not exactly what I want it to be. But how I can explain it right now is that it's a very grounded brand in terms of our values. It's very centered around old traditions. It's centered around indigenous systems and indigenous ways of, cooking, indigenous ways of healthcare, indigenous ways of just mindset. So I'm very proud of the brand that we've built now. And this brand took me from 2018 to now. That's how long I've been cultivating this space and building this particular brand. And with this brand came a lot of growth for myself as well. And so the branding and marketing has sort of stayed the same, but the quality of work has improved dramatically. So now we are very, very much focused on Southern African indigenous produce systems, and we actually got a farm where we are going to be planting a lot more. We're going to be creating a wellness center centered around holistic healing, including what you put in your body and medications and all of those things. So we are moving from just a catering company into becoming, a holistic brand, and that's how I can best describe the brand right now.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle. Before it was write your own story. It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
That was our first slogan.
Really?
Yeah. It's a lifestyle.
All right. And then the pandemic happens.
Yes.
And businesses are hit with a headwind they've never seen before. Nobody knows how to navigate it. Nobody knows how to get to the other side. How did you do it?
And if there is another side.
If there is another side.
There is another. And the pandemic was scrambling. I mean, even some of my chef friends who have their own catering businesses, we would call each other and be like, oh, we are scrambling. Luckily for me, when COVID hit, I went home. I went to my parents with my sister in Siyabusa, Kwandebele. And when we were there, my mom took us around where she grew up, and we discovered probably 80 to 100 different ingredients that just grow in my hometown where I grew up and where my mom grew up. And so we went home. So a lot of that is what took my mind off what was actually happening. I closed my doors and I said, you know what, it's fine. If I try to stress about this, and I was lucky enough to be able to actually not have the stress. Even my rent, where the kitchen was, they were very flexible, very understanding. And so I said, I'm not gonna, sacrifice my mental health for something I have no control over. I'm just gonna go home. And so being at home with mom, learning a lot of the systems, learning a lot of the ways in which they used to preserve ingredients, cook ingredients, that took my mind off the actual pandemic and the fact that my business is not making money. And then coming back after COVID, now we are packaging, we are meal prepping, we are sending things, you out busy, but you are not making money.
Sure.
And you are just busy so that you can stay relevant, so that people can remember you, so you can stay in the space. Because if you don't do that, people are just going to forget and think that you died with COVID. So we are moving, packaging, buying packaging, and prices can't be too high because
people
all
still
just
don't
came out of
it
all just came out of a pandemic, so you have to considerate of that. But you're working extremely hard, and it was after COVID where I decided to let go of all my stuff, and I was just like, I'm just gonna work with Uber drivers. Some of my clients would be like, Noni and your Uber drivers, thank you so much for a nice Christmas. So that's when I decided, because the stress of employees again was intense, because during COVID times I had to still pay salaries with money
on you.
I had to pay whatever it was that I could pay. And where was I getting it? And they're still employed by me. So it was, and the tier thing that the government created, where it just backlog on backlog, the system's not loading. That thing was just a headache. And your staff is still looking to you to pay them. And so I realized that added extra stress, and stress that I could have avoided. And so we came back, it was just me and my sister, and my cousin and my brother, and we just did the orders. We did the meal preps, we did the family lunches. I mean, there was no box. I remember talking to a friend of mine who's also in catering and events. She's like, I can throw a party in a box right now. The way COVID, we were boxing every single thing. It's like, if you ask me to throw a party in a box for you with confetti, with champagne, I will throw a party in a box. And so it was a big scramble, but financially it was just draining as opposed, but you had to keep doing it, to stay relevant. We were not doing those things because that's our offering. We're doing them to survive, and we're doing them to stay afloat. And so going back there and needing to sort of please people and still do the boxes, the parties in the boxes and all of those things, I had to put my foot down and be like, this is not what we do. This is not what we do. It's very stressful. And for me, it's not what I signed up for. And I mean, because myself for that during COVID was indigenous product. So it was the iced tea, it was Beppo scones, Beppo cakes, golden sage, this custards, and that's what I was doing. And with that came people who were saying, oh, I don't eat anything within Beppo because my beliefs don't allow for me to consume something in Mhlonyane or something. So that alone for me was a stress. So I had to alter it to fit the customer, and that's never been how I've wanted my business to be. I've never wanted it to be constricted by what the customer wants, because if I'm constricted by what the customer wants, I'm never going to create anything new. I'm never going to innovate in my business. I would have never done the indigenous stuff. I would have never gone this path if I just focus on what the customer wants. So that's another lesson that I had to learn, to say you have to put your foot down, because this is what you believe in and this is what you want to do, and everything else has to go so that new things can come in. Because if you're holding on to the boxed food and all of that, you yourself don't believe that bigger contracts are going to come and bigger bookings are going to come.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then, this country, it's been so many things. Unrest, interest rates.
Yeah.
It just doesn't end.
Yeah.
In that environment, how would you describe in this day and age what entrepreneurship is?
Survival. Entrepreneurship today is survival. You just have to survive all of it, and you get rewarded for surviving. Your mental health is taking a seat back, and you just eat or be eaten. I don't think anyone today enjoys entrepreneurship for what it is holistically. I think people just enjoy the money, the monetized side of it. I make money, I grow businesses, I have 10,000. But mental health wise, a lot of entrepreneurs that I know, close friends, are suffering because it's just we just have to make it, This is happening, how can you create a business from that? This is happening, how can you create a business? What's lacking? So no one is really taking a step back and checking in with themselves to say, how are you doing? Because everything that's happening in the country, we can put on our jackets and we can say, let's go, let's fight, let's physically do something. But if your mental health is not okay, then all of that is going to be, you're going to end up doing things that are unimaginable, because you're mentally not stable to even engage with any of this. Interest rates and unrest and all these things that have dramatically, and we are in the service industry, so we are. And I remember when we had the Joburg unrest, they attacked our kitchen, where our kitchen was.
Yes, because you were right in town.
We were right in the center, and my sister and my cousin had gone there to pick up some equipment, and so they had to hide. I mean, the stress alone from that, because now who's going to come to town and book the studio, because we were using the studio for event. Who's going to feel safe to come to town and book the studio? And interest rates and everything else that's happening, it's a luxury industry that we are in. So people don't have to use your services. And so if you are relying on the external things that are happening around your business, you're mentally not going to be okay. So entrepreneurs, I think, have to get to a place where you are okay without the business. You are okay with understanding that your mental health comes first, because if you're healthy here, anything else that happens outside is going to be okay. You'll find a way to maneuver through it without needing to survive.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you think mental health is the pandemic that's coming next, or the pandemic that's already infiltrating us now?
It's been infiltrating us. I think now there's a bigger spotlight on it, but it's something. I mean, in my almost 10 years in the industry, most of my friends, their mental health has taken a seat back. Some of them don't even. This is not something you can engage with, your mental health, because you just have to go. That's it. And so when the pandemic hit, everyone was lost. Everyone was just, it was starting from ground up.
Yeah.
Because when the pandemic hit, what are you saying?
Yeah.
What are you saying to me? I've been running for the past 5 years. I'm running every single day, and you're telling me now I have to close doors, and you don't know when I'm going to open. So mental health has been building up. It's a build up, and I think if we don't stop to look at it and we don't stop to take care of it, capitalism is going to be what takes care of it for us. Yeah.
Sure. And then the Internet of Things.
Yeah.
Digitization and e-commerce become the big buzzwords.
Yeah.
How are you guys navigating that space? Are you guys maneuvering in it at all? Did it find you napping at all?
Definitely found us napping. Yeah, the internet is so big. It's so intimidating. But you know, for us, because we are in, like, it's a service industry, we are there, we are offering you something that you feel, something that, you know, we can't really take advantage, not can't, we haven't yet found a way to take full advantage of how we can translate that into living online. But we did open up a company called Bow at Home, which is an e-commerce website where you can buy some of the indigenous products that we sell. So we've got a wild garlic pesto, we've got umhlonyane butter, which is like a cookie butter, and we've got impepho granola. So that was what came out of COVID for us in terms of what the internet was doing. So when people were doing challenges and starting online businesses,
Making beers,
that's what we wanted our footprint to be online, which is access to indigenous ingredients and things, that products that you can use in your everyday home that were not available before.
So agility, getting a lot of agility from entrepreneurship, and then the pandemic wasn't so bad. There were opportunities.
Yeah, you know, depends on where you were mentally.
Yeah,
I mean, the pandemic really messed with a lot of people's, you know, psyche a lot. Yeah. And some people are still recovering from them. Some people are still. I have friends who are scared to open up businesses again because of what the pandemic did. Yeah.
Customer service.
Yeah.
Essentially the cornerstone of your business.
Yes.
What has been your experience with interacting with your clients? Who would you say is your client?
Whew.
Be careful not to leave anyone out.
Should I mention names?
I like to do names.
Oh, my clients. Sure.
We'll do a drum roll there.
Yeah, no, my clients, it's broad. It's broad. It's from middle class to upper middle class to upper class. And then it's also corporates. But in terms of the private clients, it's the guy who appreciates customer service. It's the guy who appreciates quality service and produce and ingredients. It's the guy who appreciates special touches and value being added. It's the guy who appreciates the cost that comes with creating experiences. So those are more of our private clients. It's the guys who enjoy luxury, who enjoy, you know, having things that they've never tried before, who are open to you creating menus, who are open to even saying, you know, I have a dinner at my house, do whatever you want, which I enjoy clients like that, by the way. I don't like clients who like to pick menus, and now I'm trying to design the day and I want to change the menu, but I know you're going to ask me about the chocolate mousse that I said I'm going to make. Now my feelings are going towards cheesecake. Now I have to be like, oh, I have to make a chocolate mousse because they chose the chocolate mousse. So I enjoy clients who come to me and just give me creative freedom in what I need to do.
Sure. And then historically, this industry has been one that has been dominated by, you know, the fair skin. It still is by big businesses, right?
Yeah.
Are we doing enough to bridge the gap? And if not, what needs to happen for that to happen?
Sure. We're still a minority in terms of, our people in the industry. It's changed from when I started. There's a lot more people coming into the space. Catering is a big, it's a big commitment for a chef. But we have a lot of private chefs coming up. We have a lot of chefs visibly being visible online and on TV for other young chefs that are coming up. I don't want to say we haven't done much. A lot has happened and a lot has changed, but I definitely think we could do more. And a lot of it starts in the schools. A lot of the conversations need to happen in the schools. A lot of the identities that the kids are forming need to start at the schools. I mean, you take something like the food that they make in culinary schools. It's very, it's colonial food. It's food that was introduced to us. And so when you work with a chef and you say, I don't want you to give me a beef Wellington. I don't want you to give me, a tartare. I don't want you to give me, it's very difficult for them to wrap their head around something that is not white, something that's not colonial. Even the style of the way in which we start our businesses and the style of the way in which we want to have a say in the world and we want to put ourselves out there is very much influenced by our fair-skinned counterparts. And so I think the schools have a big role to play. Schools have a big role to play in introducing chefs that are coming up to the different ways in which you can make money and a career in the food industry across all aspects, not just you go work for a restaurant. Because even when I deal with some of my freelance chefs, all they want to do is work for a Michelin star restaurant, or they want to go to Paris and go work in Paris. But no one is really grounded in growing the culinary space in Southern Africa. They all want to go abroad. Which is, that's where I think we have a lot of work to put in terms of indoctrinating these kids into creating what is level of is globally, acceptable, creating it here at home. And that's where we need to start.
Sure. So we don't discuss customer's role, right? A customer's role. I'm a firm believer that not everybody's an entrepreneur. Some of us are investors. We invest in brands.
Yes. In one way or another.
In one way or another. Right? But we don't engage the entrepreneur at a level. We're always taught to buy local, promote local products, buy local, produce things. But I think I think customers would like more responsibility, right? But we just don't know what that looks like. How would you, as an entrepreneur, how would you like to be supported by customers?
I mean,
outside of just buying your products.
That is 1,000 leaps. And it seems like you're doing something small, but it's actually you're doing a lot more if you are buying my product as opposed to not buying my product. If you're talking about my product, if you are tagging me, whether you've booked me or not, whether you know my product or not, if you believe in my brand and you've heard of other people speak on my brand, a tag, a referral, a word of mouth, when someone is like, oh, I've got an event that I want to do, and you just say, I know someone, I've never used them, but maybe you could try that. That goes a long way, and I think that's why there's so much investment around making the customer aware of buying local, support local, and all of that, is because it really does go a long way. And one thing that you do, you might think, I want to do more, I want to, but it's
on the poster.
I want to go on the streets, give me pamphlets, let me play that pamphlets. In any way that you can help, the best way that you can help is to support. And this is by word of mouth, this is by buying the product, this is even engaging the owners of these companies and finding out what they would maybe want help with inside the business. But mostly just visibility for the local guys, visibility for the products that they offer, and you buying them and you tagging them and you speaking about them. That goes a very long way.
So it's been over 10 years?
Yes.
We have lessons now. You're experienced. You're 10-year-old. You can stop cooking. No,
I can write my own name.
No, you're almost an adult. You're almost an adult.
Yeah.
What would share some of your lessons, right, with entrepreneurs that are listening. Some of your lessons, and even if they are money lessons, because I don't think we talk about that, money management. Some of the things that made your journey just a little bit more difficult than it had to be.
Yeah, I mean, mental health. mental health. You know, when I was in aviation and we were, when I needed to renew my safety license, my cabin crew license, because I was cabin crew, and we did a safety course, the instructor would always say, "You're no use dead on the flight. So don't try to be a hero. If you try to be a hero, you're no use. If you're dead, then people are just going to go all over you. Whereas if you're alive, there's a lot more that you can offer. So take care of your mental health. Take care of your mental health. The other lesson that I've learned is that employees are not always a necessity in a business. Look at your business, look at where you're going, look at what works for you, and then implement that, because I know there's a lot of pressure around hire youth, and you know, entrepreneurs should just hire.
The employees of the future. That's what they told us.
There's so much pressure around that, but you know, don't let that consume you in how you plan to say, I want to have 100 employees that I'm employed, 100 employees employed by me, because my sister has an analogy that she calls it the Ezweni, Ezweni communications, what does she call it? Syndrome.
Okay.
Where we all want to wear a suit, walk into a building with an elevator that opens and there's a queen sitting there, and we say, "Queen, do you have messages?" And then Queen says, "Here you go, sir, I'm bringing your coffee." And you know, that's what we all want. That's what we grew up understanding business is, and power is. And so try to move away from that and really understand your business for what it is, because once you understand your business and what it needs, then you'll be able to make moves that are benefiting the business as opposed to creating a problem in the long run. Which is what I did. I was like, I don't really need employees. Why am I so stressed about? Because I wanted to hire chefs. I hired chefs. I hired people, but it was just not working. And I tried so hard to be the tau, get in, to have messages, to have an office, a laptop. I do all my business on my phone. But I went and bought a laptop because I look serious.
Makes sense. Hot dog they look.
And you wear the heels, and you type like this with your shoulders, but that time you haven't slept in 3 days because you've been working 3 clients. And so look inside your business and see what works for you, and don't be ashamed to work. And I know that the other lesson is that your business has to learn how to survive without you. Your business, that thing that, you know, that slogan of entrepreneurship. For me personally, I've learned that when a business is still small, it needs all of your attention. And most of the times, even with some of my industry friends, when they tried that strategy of my business to survive without me, it ends up drowning because you left it alone too small. Big business can do that. Big business can have a well-oiled machine because they have systems, they have help. But as a small business, that mindset of your business needs to be a thing that works on its own is very dangerous, because your quality drops, customer service drops, there's so many things that drop. And we were told, that's why entrepreneurs have so many businesses, because if this one fails, but if you really are invested in your business and you're there to make it work, there's no room for it to fail. Because you're there every day, you're making it work. But if you have 10,000 different businesses, it's difficult to be there for all of them. And so that's where there's a split with entrepreneurs. There's the entrepreneur that wants to be in there every day, that wants to grow the business. Then there's the entrepreneur who wants to make a lot of money and, you know, have high returns and employ a lot of people. And those are two different, you know,
types of entrepreneurs.
Very different types of entrepreneurs. They don't fall under the same space. Though that's one of the lessons that I learned, that I'm not Mrs. You know, I'm not. I'm not Queen Morocco. I'm not Tao. I am more of a very invested entrepreneur who wants to watch the company grow, who still wants to cook the food themselves, who still wants to taste everything that they make, wants to explore. Sometimes I go shopping myself and I want to see and touch the ingredients. So that's the kind of entrepreneur that I found myself to be, and that took a lot of lessons that I had to learn, and it's lessons that I had to learn about who I was and what I wanted to say in the space. I didn't want to just mold into someone else's frame of who I should be as an entrepreneur. So I wanted to write my own story, and that's why I said, our slogan now is write your own story. I wanted to do it my own way and do it in a way that works for me, because at the end of the day, I have to deal with it, not the guy motivating me to tell me that my business needs to be well oiled. I have to be the one that deals with the ramifications, and I'm the one who understands how the business works. So don't allow that pressure to sort of set in and start creating the person that you want to become. You have to be firm about who it is that you want to become. That's the other lesson that I learned. And the other lesson that I learned was with mental health, with taking care of your mental health, comes a big understanding where you are able to zoom out of your business and you can look at your business from an outside, and you can have honest conversations about what's working, what you need to let go of, what you need to introduce. And you can be able to do that if you're zoomed out, but you can only zoom out when you have a healthy mental space about your business and about the different industries that you might find yourself in. Nuggets. Yeah.
Black Olive House.
Yes.
What's in the future? Take us into that journey. What does it look like?
The future is me leaving Joburg completely.
At home.
Every time I say that, my clients are like, I don't know if it's gonna work like that.
Yeah.
But the future really is me and my sister moving into our farm. My sister is an artist; she's a visual artist. Is moving into our farm and creating a holistic space where everything that we've learned, everything we are learning, and everything that we've accumulated over the years can have a place to live. Joburg is very small. There's certain places you can't reach in terms of holistically reaching people, because food is ritualistic. Food is a very holistic, interaction that you have. So we want to go into a space that's friendly enough for us to be able to explore and expand on what Black Olive House can offer and what my sister as an artist can offer. So we are going to open a center where we have chalets or cabins that we're going to build, very intimate. And me, I'm going to open a guest house with 10,000 rooms. I don't want that stress. You only have one life. It's one. It's not 1.5. It's not, maybe if you mess up here, there's another one that's coming on. It's one life. Me, I'm not trying to spend it worrying about 10,000 rooms, having boardroom meetings about, give me the stats. What are the reports? So we're planning to go there, very intimate space, 10 cabins that we're going to create. We're going to be aligning things to the moons and the stars. And it's a whole
experience,
that's centered also around indigenous Ndebele systems, systems that we learned, especially during COVID, with all the knowledge that my mom was passing down. It's values that we grew up with, that we grew up understanding. So we're going to be going, that's the future for Black Olive House, is to create a space where people can come. Even the entrepreneurs that don't want to care about their mental health, come in. We'll try and see if we can do something.
Can work with you.
But it's really just a holistic space where, because living and working in Gauteng has shown me a lot of unhealthy people in the mind. I mean, Joburg is an eat or be eaten space. It's rough. And so a lot of my peers are very troubled in the mind, and people don't really understand what to do or where to go or what is this that I'm feeling. Therapy is not helping, and I'm not saying therapy is bad, but sometimes just something else that people are yearning for, even if it's just a conversation, even if it's a conversation around umlota, where you've grounded your feet and you're sitting around the fire, those things. We used to do that, my sister and I, when we used to curate events at the studio. We'd make fire and people would open up about things that you wouldn't think would be opened up about at an event. So there's a space in which we meet as abantu that I think is very sacred, that my sister and I are trying to cultivate. A plasine where we're going to go and invite people to come in so that they can share in the space and we can share in their space. And with that comes a lot of healing for us and a lot of healing for them. So that space is a very sacred. It's not an online space. It's not a space that can be easily saturated, because it's very fragile. It's very sacred. So that's the space we want to be speaking to when we engage with people at Black Olive House going forward.
Amazing. Can't
Me too. As
soon as I
drop the
notice.
invites online, or you'll see a man coming to your house to bring you an invite
Because it's that intimate.
It's
Yes.
that intimate. Yes.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. But until then, where can people find you?
Online on Instagram, you can find us under blackolive_house. Well, I haven't said these handles in so long. It's blackolive_house, and our other page is Bow at Home, where we sell the indigenous products. We are also on Facebook under Black Olive House, and on all our posts, every post has our phone numbers, email address, as well as website.
Ladies and gentlemen, our head chef, Noni Masombuka.
Thank you.